Good morning, friends. So nice to see everyone today. We are live today with Sip with Stacy. Good morning, friends. Let's turn that echo off. There we go. Okay, let's start again. So good morning, everyone. It's Friday, December 2nd. I can't believe it's December, right, Sarah? And we are live this morning with a really great leader from Idaho, Sarah Libengood, and we just couldn't be happier to have her on this morning with Sip with Stacy. I first want to start and just carve out what Sip with Stacy is. And Sip with Stacy is a live stream where we shine a light and spill the tea on our leaders that are in our industry, and more importantly, Women's Council of Realtors. And that idea behind our live stream leadership is to take a dive into the council's mission, vision, and values. And what inspired me to start this is because we want to see what really unites our leaders to lift as they climb. And mentors along my journey have reached out a hand to me, and we want to see what ignites Sarah and who she has lifted and all about her journey. So without further ado, let's welcome Sarah. Thank you, Sarah, for being on today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I'm super happy to. So thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Well, let's start, Sarah, with your first beginnings with the Women's Council. Let's talk about your first experience and maybe even your first meeting that you attended.
So I was invited to Women's Council of Realtors by my financial planner. And at the time I was like, why do I want to go hang out with a bunch of other realtors? Like, frankly, like I'm busy. I'm a busy realtor. Why do I want to go do this? And I got to the meeting, and first of all, it was fun. And I was that busy realtor that didn't have a lot of fun in her life. And I also didn't have a lot of people in my life who really understood, like, hey, it's 8 o'clock at night, I'm still working. And so my girlfriends are like, what are you doing? Like, why do you get so wrapped around the axle about contract law? And so going to a meeting where there were these other women who could totally understand, like, oh yeah, no, I was out last night too. Oh, did you see this new thing they put in the RE21? It was a really fun place to come home to. And it was something, and I now term them surprising friendships, where I find these surprising friends who I never knew that I would have friendships with. I never knew I would have commonality with. And I never knew that I could have fun with, because, in our industry, they always were like, oh, it's your competition. And I firmly don't believe that. I believe in collaboration. So it was really wonderful to find my home at Women's Council. And then also at the time when I first joined Women's Council, I was a master faculty instructor at Keller Williams. And I realized the power of the education that the local network meetings offer, and that inspiration, because not every brokerage has world-class training or world-class education or something that feeds our brains, that helps us keep moving forward. Especially as women, we're so busy with the kids, with the clients, with the housework, with, I don't know, all of the different balls that we juggle. And so again, helping other women do more, and of course, helping other men do more as well. I really felt it was a great place to lift our profession and to make us all better and do more and sell more real estate and help our clients and be better advocates and really teach and preach that throughout our community. So that's what inspired me to get involved.
Wow, that's beautiful. That whole segment there, National needs to interview you and use that to recruit members, because that was beautiful. Because not only are we elevating our leadership within ourselves and others, but our education at the same time. And that's what the beauty of Women's Council is, right? Is that we're lifting ourselves in education and leadership, and we're helping our communities at the same time. It's like the beautiful trifold all at once. So I love that. That was beautiful how you just crafted that whole line. I love that, Sarah. You're such a wonderful speaker. So now let's talk about your leadership within the council. You went to your first meeting, your financial advisor got you involved. And then when did you decide this is my time to raise my hand? Sarah's going to raise her hand.
So I first got involved. Well, let me preface this by saying that my father told me as a young person that if you're going to do one thing, do it very well. If you're going to get involved with an organization, get all in. Like, don't just stick a finger in and be like, oh, I'm involved. He's like, if you're going to be part of something, like, do it. So I first volunteered to create a membership committee. We had our membership chair, but I was like, honey, I think you need some help. Like, I like talking to other realtors. Why don't you, I mean, I'm in the business. Like, why don't you let me invite people? And they were like, really? You would do that? You're busy. I'm like, well, I'm never too busy to make a phone call to another realtor, because you never know what's going on with their day. Because frankly, I do call it bipolar real estate, where some days you are the queen of the world and other days you are lower than a bow-legged caterpillar. And so if you can catch that person when they might need just somebody to like bounce ideas off of, and then you invite them to something which is truly a value add, when you're inviting them to come get inspired, to come get recharged, it's exciting. So I was really happy to start out on the membership committee. And then I think some of you have met me. You all know that I really, truly enjoy speaking. So, and I also firmly believe that leadership starts in small doses. So I've met many, many women who are terrified of public speaking. So to ask them to do the pledge is a very small step into leadership, because it gives them that confidence to like, oh, maybe I did the pledge, maybe I could do the inspiration, or maybe I could serve on a committee. Like, that was really fun and there was no judgment. And like, let's see what we can do. So it inspires that little spark to grow. And so it's really fun. So I did quite a few inspirations. I then kind of leapt forward because I didn't really understand the process. So I ran for president, gosh, 2019, and I lost. And so, and then they're like, well, you ran for president, you don't really understand the system. Why don't you be the president-elect? And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but I'll do it. I was kind of blindly and happily just willing to serve. And then in 2020, I was our local network president for Boise Metro, and that was during a time of COVID. So, and during the time of COVID, they told me that we couldn't have our local network meetings. And I will tell you, I said a lot of F words, and because I had planned an amazing year. And I was like, well, they can't make me stop. We need Women's Council more than ever in the time of COVID, because I watched y'all on Facebook and it was terrifying watching your mindsets, watching some of you crater your own businesses, even though we were very lucky in Idaho that we were deemed essential workers right away, watching you guys be afraid. And so it gave me much more of a passion to reach out and try to touch people and be like, we're here for each other. Like, this is where Women's Council needs to shine, because we're still moving forward. This is not something that is in perpetuity. I can't say that word this morning. It's not going to be here for forever, but we are here for forever for each other. And then shortly after that, I was tapped by Kim Sitton to be her president-elect for state president. And so that was 2021. And then 2022, I was our Idaho state president. Super fun. So a little quick on the whole track.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's great. And you know, it really starts just with that little tap, someone just igniting that confidence in you to take that next step into leadership. And then there's so many people there to help along the line. And I love how you described and navigated your way through COVID, because wasn't that so hard for all of us? You had an executed plan that you wanted to do, and then COVID came into play, and we all had to figure out the next steps and still how to be impactful to our members. And that was one thing I was so proud of Women's Council is we did it. We just got on Zoom. We were Zoom queens, but we did it at least, and we connected with our members. So thank goodness, for all of that. Now tell me about, and I also love the story about when you didn't make it for president, you accepted president-elect. So that's a servant leadership in my eyes, and how important servant leadership is, that we really just, ripple effect servant leadership, because I know my leadership before I got into Women's Council was not servant leadership. I did not have the best example in my business background. And that's something that Women's Council really taught me, is what servant leadership is. So it looks like you already had it, Sarah. So kudos to you for being a shining example. So thank you for that.
Well, I tell, when I was the state president, I would tell our local presidents, it is not about you. It is not your year. It is about the members. And it is about truly giving back to the members and serving the members, because again, we're about serving the greater good, serving the community. It's just, and just giving back to the people. So it's not necessarily you. It can be your brainchild idea of what you want for the year, what you want it to look like, but it's about serving the members. So.
Right. And I also love how your dad was so instrumental in helping you with a lot of your leadership growth. Sounds like he was a very important mentor in your life. We want to talk about your dad a little?
Sure. So I actually just had coffee with my dad yesterday. I love my father. He's such a wonderful man. He did, when I got licensed in real estate, it was 2009, and he asked me if I had lost my F word mind. And I was like, well, I think it's a great time to be in real estate. And so I think solely to prove him wrong, I sold 26 homes my first year in real estate.
Oh my God.
They were all under $100,000. And when I say under $100,000, I mean like well under $100,000. But my dad has taught me so much about people, and it's not about selling homes, it's about helping people. And I firmly think I get that from my father. I also firmly think that my thoughts on people, for me, it doesn't matter if you're yellow and you have purple polka dots and you like to do weird stuff in your free time. I might seek to understand, like, okay, well, why is this important to you? But I'm not going to come at you with judgment being like, oh, that's wrong or weird, gross, or you're pink and purple polka dotted. To me, everyone deserves a house. Everyone deserves a place that they can call home. And so I think that's something that he embedded in me. He also embedded a great sense of humor. So although I also realize now not everything I say is funny, even though I might think it is. So.
I have to say that's one of the things that really attracted me to you when I saw you get up and run for National Executive Committee, and I saw you speak, and you're so tall and beautiful, but I loved your sense of humor, because I love to laugh too. And I always think sometimes it's just that edge. It's whether we're going to cry sometimes or we're going to laugh. And I always choose to cry. So I love to laugh. So thank you for bringing humor into our world. So I appreciate that. And I saw that in you. So, and also, wow, what a great thing to have your father as such a shining example. And it sounds like he really installed servant leadership in your life, and he's a shining example. So that is so beautiful to have. I love that. Yes. Okay, now let's talk about some of the items that might be a little harder in our leadership. We all have some valleys and things that happen to us. And let's talk about your hardest moment as state president and how you navigated through that, Sarah.
I want to say I had two this past year as a state leader. One was on my board, and one was with one of our local networks. So the one that was on my board, it was a matter of communication, and it's something that I learned very well. And the other interesting fact is I've served with this particular person for years before. And so I did not properly seek to understand her point of view as far as where she was coming from. And I think I really hurt her feelings, and it made me feel terrible. And like, to the point where I think I called my son and I'm like, tell me I'm not a horrible person. And he's like, Mom, stop being crazy. But part of having great communication is understanding how somebody else communicates. I'm a very short, like my emails are, yep, let's do it. I'm a high D personality. This other person is not a high D personality, although sometimes exhibits high D kind of traits. And so when sending emails, being very curt is not always appropriate. So what I learned off of that is how to understand the way that somebody needs to hear things, because it's not always just one way, your way. It's about, okay, well, they're not understanding what I'm saying. Let's try to figure out a way to say it in a way that they're not going to feel bad about it. Because I consider myself friends with this person, and I felt very, very bad that I really truly hurt her feelings, and because it was not my intention by any stretch. Also, so going now to the local network, we had a board that it was tough. I actually went and I met with them. We sat them down because I felt we truly needed what I call a come to Jesus meeting. Like, we need to hash out, like, why is there so much drama? Why is there so much talking like about each other and misinterpretation when we have one very simple thing to do, which is to serve our members? And what we're doing right now is not serving our members. Right now, it's creating a picture of drama. And for somebody like me, if I see an organization where it's like, well, she said this, I'm not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. I just won't do it. So we ultimately elected to have, they elected to have their president step down and have the president-elect step forward. It was a relatively just unfortunate situation because I think everybody's heart was there. They just, again, went about it from different directions, but it was that communication piece and like clear set of, okay, I volunteered for this position. I'm going to show up at the Thursday meeting, at the planning meeting. I'm going to do a governing board meeting. I'm going to have respect for somebody who's been in this position a little bit longer than me and maybe listen and seek first to understand before I'm just like, well, that's silly, because we volunteered. And when you volunteer for the position, not only one, do you need to show up, but two, you need to learn and be open to learning and open to understanding. And for heaven's sakes, read your bylaws. Like, come on, like, do it. Read your standing rules. They're there for a reason so that there's clarity. And so again, communication is a very, very important thing, and really making sure that your members are getting the message. So it's not just about, well, I sent out that email. It's about, okay, I sent out that email. Did you understand what your next steps are? So those are two fun things that I learned this year.
Yes, totally agree. And that's so, so important. I'm glad you brought up that communication point, Sarah, because how many times I am a high D as well. And I like those quick answers. Okay, let's get to the next point. Come on, let's do it. And it seems like in my leadership journey, if I source back all the problems or issues, it was always the deliverance of communication. And so how important that is. If you do see a little snag in your communication, the best course of action, I think, always is just to pick up that phone and call that person and correct it as soon as you can, because the more time that goes by, it festers and it just gets bigger and bigger. And I've learned that. So now I try to just nip it in the bud and call them and apologize and say, this is what I meant, or how can we work this out? Because I don't want those. I don't want those hiccups. So that's such a good point and a good lesson to other leaders, don't you think?
Oh, I firmly agree. So I also come to realize, so I'm big in all of the personality tests and all of those things. And I like to think of how I hold the relationship that I have with my husband. My
Mhm.
husband and I, we are very, very different people. And it's great because we balance each other very, very well. And I
Mhm.
like to think about, I could crush my husband's feelings like a bug, like, and so quick without even wanting to do that. And it's not that he's not that big, like, tough Idaho guy, because he is a big, right, dirt bikes.
Yeah.
He, but I would never want to crush his feelings because of the relationship that I have with him. So I try to keep that at the forefront of my brain, not only when I'm dealing with my clients, but with my fellow women's council members, and really being present in the conversation and hearing what they have to say. So it's really important to actually actively listen to your people too. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's such a good point that, that your husband is a completely different personality and you recognize that and you know how to communicate with him, because that's the key, right? Is how do we communicate with the other personality to get our point across? No matter what personality we are, we've got to go on, we have to meet them where they are, right?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you for those lessons, Sarah. Now let's talk about your mountains, your peaks, and the successes that you had at the local level and the state level.
So I will say that my favorite opportunity that I had was in delivering my Leadership Institute speech. And I made Madam President Pamela Banks cry. And it was such a great experience because it brought up things in not only my journey in my life that I didn't realize were such keynotes that have made me who I am today, but other people could relate to my story. And I remember being in San Diego, and I am not a jogger, but I delivered my speech and I told Donnell Default, who I love her like a sister, I was like, I need to run. Like, I am on fire. Like, I just had so much energy. And seeing that my story touched other people and that somebody could relate to me, because I think sometimes I feel like I'm just like this weirdo island and all I do is sell real estate. It was really wonderful to see. And then I also gave the same speech as an inspiration, actually twice. And I had people come up to me after the meeting and telling me that it really inspired them and part of their life. So I'm going to say that was the highest of the high points. So, and I will say my second highest point is always watching people rise. And when you can tap somebody on the shoulder and be like, hey, I really think you would do great at this. Have you ever thought about that? And then you watch that little spark glow, and then you watch it get bigger and you watch it get bigger. And then when I get to install them, or when I get to be at their installment, or when I get to just watch them through their leadership journey, it is so exciting because I see what it does, not only for you personally, but for your business as well. And so when you watch somebody actively grow in front of you, and some people, they can grow very quickly, and other people, they grow, it takes them a little bit longer, but it's still, you watch how it affects their family, their finances, their relationships, their lives. And you know that part of it was because you helped them see that little spark that they already have inside themselves. So
That's so beautiful, because it's true. It's that little spark that ignites, and you can see people growing right in front of us. And there's really nothing better, because to me, it's like motherhood, right? It's like we're watching our children, and it's just this ripple effect, like Sylvia Seabolt says, where we just start watching all these leaders grow right in front of our eyes, and we're planting these seeds. And nothing is really better. That's what warms our heart, and I think keeps us going even when we have difficult times. So going into that, what makes Sarah cry?
my son,
Your son?
my son. So and he doesn't do it often, thankfully. Uh, Everything in my adult life I have done because I felt my son deserved a better life. So when I had my son when I was 22, 23-ish. And the fun part is he's now 22. He turns 23 in January. And I lived in this terrible basement apartment, and I had a terrible partner. And his father would really, he did not want to, I'll say he wanted to finish school. We'll be nice. We're on Facebook. So, and I remember thinking that I wanted better for my son. I know my parents wanted better for me.
Mhm.
I wanted better for my son. So he was the main reason why I moved to Boise, Idaho, because I wanted my son to be around a strong male role model, which is my father.
Mhm.
I have always worked really hard so that my son could play soccer, so that he could go to good schools, so that he could become the man that he is. And I do remember when I dropped him off at college, I warned my husband. I was like, there's going to be ugly crying. There's going to be snot bubbles. There's going to be like, it's going to be ugly. And I remember I dropped him off at this orientation, and I saw him shaking hands and kissing babies and being friendly and introducing himself. And I literally grasped my pearls and I went, oh, I made that. He's doing everything that I taught him to do. And all of that sadness was replaced by overwhelming pride. So if there's something that makes me cry, that it's my kid, because I'm so proud of him, and I will walk over fire for him. I will walk through shards of glass. Like he's such an amazing young man, and it's so fun watching him grow into the person that he is. And the fun part is he now works at a bank, and he just got his lender's license. So even though he told me he'd never do real estate, so I'm very, very, very proud. So,
That's so awesome. Oh, I'm crying right now, because that just speaks volumes of the person that you are, because you poured your whole life into him, and you cared how he turned out, and everything was about him and not you. So what a great mother you are, and a person and a leader, Sarah. Thank you for being in this world and doing what you do, because that is beautiful. Because I know, I can just tell the sacrifices that you set forth for him in his life, and how important that was. And so that's awesome. Awesome, mommy. I love it. What is next for Sarah? Where's Sarah going on her leadership journey?
well, this upcoming year, I am on the National Committee for Budget and Finance, so I'm excited for that. Outside of that, I plan to, I can't say take a break, because I'm still very active with Boise Metro and Canning County, because we have two local networks that are very close to each other. I am working on some new designations, which is very fun. So I just got my CDRE and my CPRES, so probate and divorce and real estate. And so I don't know where I'm going yet, because I'm waiting for someone to tap me and tell me, like, hey, I think you should do this. I do also feel there's outside of writing coursework for Idaho, like, it is my plan to create CE work for probate work, because it's something that is so sorely needed, especially in the state of Idaho, where for some unknown reason, people do not like to do their wills. And so if somebody does pass, and if in the off chance there is a will, not even a trust, a will, it's sorely needed here. So we need to help educate not only our realtors on how to go through with that, but also to help our population of understanding why the intersection of real property and life events is so important that they're protected. Outside of doing that, I am reaching out to Idaho Realtors to see about their leadership academy, as I really truly enjoyed the relationships that I made so much when I did the Leadership Institute here at Women's Council. So I'm reaching out to them. I did miss the deadline, so they may be full. So that's what happens when you go ride motorcycles in Arizona.
That's what happens when you get lost in those mountains and in between the cactus in Arizona. Well, I did do, I was looking at your bio, and I did see that about probate and divorce, and those are great designations. Have you ever got in contact with Tawny English because she does a lot of that and she could probably help connect you. But I see classes for you. I bet you're going to start teaching some classes and educating some women and men on that probate. I think that's wonderful. And while we're on the subject of leadership with our Leadership Institute within the Women's Council, let's talk about that and maybe some members that are out here in our audience that maybe are thinking about raising their hand and putting their name in the ring for our Leadership Institute. Tell us about what your experience was and if they should do it or not.
I always say if you have the opportunity or even like this little scratch in your head that says maybe, absolutely do it. It's not only about personal growth and that intellectual growth, it's about everything. It's about the friendships that you make. It's about encouraging your sisters to through hard times. I remember we had somebody in my Leadership Institute class terrified of public speaking. I've never been afraid of a spotlight. I love to get up and speak. So she went up and she did her thing and was in tears, and it's heartbreaking. And she did it. And she did it in a safe space where there was no judgment, where she had people like me who are like, okay, this is what you got to do. You got to like close your eyes. You take a breath. This is how you breathe when you talk. This is what you got to do. And watching her do it again and again and again and again. And I, to this day, love this girl. And so it will help you grow. It will help you really hone your skills. And that can be whatever skill it is that you want to work on. And having that safe space in which to grow is amazing, because whether you think you have valid ideas or whether you think you don't, because there's plenty of us women who are like, well, what I think about doesn't really matter. I'll guarantee you it does matter. And at the Leadership Institute, they help pull what you think is important. They help pull that out of you and help you realize, oh yeah, what I say does matter. Maybe it'll impact somebody else. This great thought about, having great thoughts about like, oh, well, maybe Women's Council could do this. Maybe this would be helpful. It's like a brain trust for leadership. And I think, again, when we all come together and we all really talk about, oh, you think that too? Like, oh yeah, like, let's totally do that. Or no, I think that's a terrible idea, but yeah, let's see if we can massage that into working. And again, having that safe space and that camaraderie, it's just a wonderful place to be. It truly is. So if you have an inkling to grow, just volunteer. It's a great, yeah, I can't say, I get jumbled, which is hilarious to me, because there are so many thoughts about what a great experience it is. So.
And there's probably surprises. There's probably avenues that you grow that you don't even realize you're going to grow, right?
Totally agree. Totally agree. So yeah. And again, those surprise friendships, like I never really realized that I would have a sister in Colorado and a sister in Oregon and a sister in California and a sister in Ohio and a sister in Florida. And it's wonderful. And it gives you such joy when you see these people. I think because it is such a journey of growth and you do it together. Like I actually spoke in Oregon, and I didn't tell Rochelle Yukiich that I was coming, and we literally like hugged and cried, and that's not usually me, but it is now. So just being literally elated to see your sisters it makes me speechless. So
that's a beautiful web of leadership that you just spoke about. That's great. And maybe crying. That's what the leadership surprised you and brought out, Sarah.
Yeah, there's that.
There's that. I love that. Well, I want to ask you too about Women's Council. One of our, pillars is credibility out in our world and out in our workforce, and talk about how that has really helped you in your career is Women's Council credibility.
Right. So I don't know how to say this without sounding rude, in the state of Idaho, it is a 2-week course to get your real estate license. And
Okay.
I feel that the bar for entry is pretty low. And they're in doing CE credits and getting what I call your alphabet soup behind your name. It gives you that credibility because those people who lean into their profession are the true professionals who are in it for advocacy and for the people that they serve. Joining an organization such as Women's Council, I believe, gives you another level up. Just being a member, because you're adhering to values that are not strictly your own. And those values are pretty clear. And again, you're a level up. Then when you join and be on a board, you're adhering to an even higher level of credibility. So as somebody who's serving on the local board and is moving through the local board, when you're meeting with your potential buyers or your potential sellers, and you're saying, well, yes, I'm the local network president of Boise Metro, does that not set you apart from somebody else who they might be interviewing? You say, well, hey, oh yeah, I'm in this Leadership Institute class, I'm learning and I'm growing. It sets you apart because you're doing something more to invest not only in yourself, but you're investing in your profession, where there are a lot of people who get licensed for the wrong reasons, because they think it's easy and they want flexibility of schedule and they want the money. They don't want the advocacy and the parts that are challenging in our industry. So I firmly believe that when you step into leadership, it sets you apart for many, many, many reasons. And the main one is that you're adhering to somebody's values outside of your own. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I absolutely love that. And that it sets us apart. It elevates us. And what really touched me too, that you spoke about, is that home ownership is for everyone. And that is our job. Our job is to serve the communities that we live in. And so I love that you had mentioned that. We are already at our time, Sarah. I think I could talk to you for hours, but I do want to end with this one last question. What is your best piece of advice you've received in your career?
In my entire career, I will say the best piece of advice, and I said it earlier, is to seek first to understand. I actually think I'm going to have t-shirts made of it, because you never know where somebody is, and it can be the same person in the same river, but they're in a totally different place and time. So if you go about your life and you're seeking first to understand, it gives you a different perspective than when you come across with judgment. And when you come across with, I know this about this person. If you're seeking first to understand, you'll get to have much deeper understanding, not only of your clients, but your friends, because you never know where they are. Even if you think you don't know the stress and the baggage and the crazy and the wonderful and the joy. You don't know unless you seek to understand. So I'm gonna have t-shirts made.
I love that. I love that. Let's do that. I have a t-shirt made too, so we'll talk about that offline, girl. So we'll do that together. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being with us today, sharing your Women's Council why, sharing all your tidbits of your leadership journey. We just absolutely loved having you on, and you are so inspiring to so many other leaders. So please keep going. Don't leave us, because we need people like you, Sarah. Thank you for serving us.
Absolutely. So happy to be here today.
Oh, have a wonderful day, Sarah.
You do the same.
Thank you for being on Sip with Stacey.
Happy to. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Okay, bye-bye.